All right, guys, don't forget to unmute your mics. And I am ready, Lynn.
Mike, let's begin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Moser. I'm a Division Chief with the Coral Springs Parkland Fire Department, and I'm also going to be the moderator tonight for this Slice of the Springs. Once again this evening, we're going to do things a little bit different to accommodate those folks that are here in the audience and those folks that are watching on Facebook at home. If you're unable to attend in person, we hope that you are watching on Facebook. I'm going to introduce our panelists. Afterwards, each panelist is going to give a brief description of what their division is working on, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. If you do have a question, please raise your hand, and we'll have one of our staff members bring you a card and a pen or a pencil, and we'll be able to answer that question for you here. If you're watching on Facebook at home, please put your questions in the comment section, and we will refer them to the appropriate division to get that answer to you. For our online guests, just put your comments in the comments section underneath the video. That's the best way to get that to us. I want to introduce our panel of city staff, starting with our Public Works Department is Juan Robbie. From our Parks and Recs Department, Rick Engel.
Good evening.
Code Enforcement Department, Jackie Foster.
Good evening.
Again, I'm Mike Moser from the Coral Springs Parkland Fire Department. From our Coral Springs Police Department, Jerry Irwin.
Good evening.
Community Development, Julie Krolak.
Hi, everyone.
And our Deputy City Manager, Horace McHugh.
Good evening.
Again, for our guests in the chambers, just a reminder, we do want to get to all of your questions. We want this to be interactive, and we want you folks to be able to get the questions answered directly from the directors who are in charge of that particular division. So please raise your hand if you have a question at any time, and we'll get somebody to get a card to you to ask that question. First up, we're going to start with Juan Robbie, who's going to provide an update about our Public Works Department. And then again, each of our panelists up here will speak about their division and answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. The Public Works Department is working on several improvement and maintenance programs. One of them is the intersection ramps improvements program. We are making all the intersection ramps ADA compliant. And at the same time, we are replacing existing asphalt ramps to concrete ramps. In the picture on your left, you can see the work being performed on Royal Palm and 66 Terrace. And the picture on your right, you can see the new detectable warning surface installed at that intersection ramp. The next program, the landscape improvement program. We are re-landscaping all the entryways to the city. As you can see, these pictures, some of the entryways completed during this fiscal year, Sample Road, University Drive, and at the intersection of Wiles Road and State Road 7. We are also re-landscaping the medians along the local roads. We are replacing trees that we find in poor condition, and we are planting new ground covers. You can see the picture, some of the medians completed this fiscal year. The Ramblewood at Northwest 124th Avenue, Pine Ridge. We also continue with our road resurfacing program. The next fiscal year we'll be working on North Springs subdivision. And lastly, we continue with our household hazardous waste program. Residents can bring their paints, electronic waste, and fluorescent lamps to our waste transfer station every first weekend of each month. This October 1st, we also have a special event at our maintenance complex. We are collecting paint, electronics, light bulbs, antifreeze, auto batteries, motor oil, pool chemicals, and pesticides. So we have two events the first weekend of October. For those of you who don't know, the waste transfer station location is on Wiles Road at the west end. That is all. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rick Engel, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm going to talk about a few projects that Parks and Recreation has going on. Our first project is our artificial turf fields. Recently, the City Commission authorized us to install 7 artificial turf fields. One of the fields at Sportsplex at the stadium was completed in September and is being used now by our charter school and Coral Glades High School. We have 2 fields going in at North Community Park. One's already completed, the other one should be finished in about 2 weeks. And then we started construction this week on 2 fields at Cypress Park. And in November, we'll have 2 more going under construction in Mullins Park. So by February of 2020, we should have 7 additional artificial turf fields in our inventory of fields. The other project that just started in the recent weeks is the replacement of the slide and glide playground at Betty Stradling Park, where we partnered with Meadows Foundation and are working with their foundation to put in a new playground that'll be entitled Princess Meadows Playground. It's a partnership with their foundation to replace the playground that was due for replacement next year. That playground should be completed by late November, early December, and then directly across from the playground at Betty Stradling Park, we'll be starting construction probably sometime in the early spring of a splash pad, and we hope to have that in before summer of 2020. And finally, we hired an outside consultant about 4 or 5 months ago to do a master plan of our park system. So they're going to be looking at all 49 of our parks. They're going to be looking at everything the Parks and Recreation Department does, what type of programs we offer, what type of processes we use in our work, fees and charges, everything that has to do with Parks and Rec. And we'd like to hear from the public. We want as much feedback from the public as possible. So, the plan is going to work around what the public is looking for within our park system. So if you go on the website, it's speakupcoralsprings.org. You'll find a survey on there. It's about 8 or 9 questions. If you fill that out, that information will go back to our consultants, and they'll use that throughout their master plan. They have a survey up right now, and then within a couple months, they'll probably have a second survey. They'll notify you to go back online and fill that out. But the more information we get from you, the better our system can become. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jackie Foster.
Good evening. Welcome everyone here in the audience and those of you at home. I recognize some of our familiar faces here in the audience, and it's always kind of like an annual reunion for me. So if you're at home and not here in the audience, welcome you also. Code compliance, we're also business tax. So you'll see the visual here is our map. We have different zones. Not only do we cover these areas, but we also do business tax. And in this fiscal year and in next fiscal year, we plan to expand online services. So that's applications, that's any type of requests. We also want to provide more digital information online. We also are planning we've expanded our NP program, Neighborhood Preservation. That's inspections of rental housing. And we're also focusing on perimeters throughout the city. And if you don't know what a perimeter is, it's basically a main road. So we're out there really focusing on some main roads, doing evening inspections, looking for lighting, looking for issues with parking lots. And another couple good things, if you own a business, and maybe it's housing, we've combined invoices. So if you used to get an invoice for all your landlord registrations, or if you had a couple businesses, now we've combined them into one notice, which saves a lot of postage, mailing, and if you've had multiple businesses, you usually get one envelope. And next year, we'll be expanding our education guides. So I'm going to go forward and back real quick. Here's an education guide this is on live. It's live now, and this is for the building department. We'll be putting ours for code live this year, hopefully within the next 6 months, but the building department is currently active. And if you go and look at that online, it's extremely helpful if you're trying to pull a permit. If you've ever tried to pull a permit yourself and maybe it's a fence and you're like, man, what do I need? Or shutters. This is online. You just click on the item that you need to get a permit for, and it tells you exactly what to do. And this will be the same thing that we do for code. We always get asked about cases. Does this place have a case? I can't believe it's taken so long for that problem to get resolved. Online, you can search for certain cases by using a partial address. You can put in a case number. You could put in an owner's name. But this static map shows you in green all of our active cases. We currently have, and this was as of Monday, 1,645 active cases. And on top of that, 310 that have active liens that are running daily. So there's a lot of cases. And not only do we have this map here, we do 5,000 cases a year, 25,000 inspections a year with those 9 to 10 officers. Wow, is exactly. But one of the most exciting things that I like to talk about is our business community. We have 600 new businesses since October 1st of 2018. 600 new businesses. Really, we're not seeing that recession. We're seeing that really come forward, and a lot of exciting stuff happening. And I'll flip through here, and I'm going to pass it to Mike Mosier, who will cover the fire department.
Thanks, Jackie. People need to remember we are still in active hurricane season, so we're not out of the woods yet. As you can see from the news just recently, there's always some sort of storm going on out there, so we want our residents to prepare. We also can agree that South Florida was spared from Dorian, which obviously did some damage down in the Bahamas, but we were safe from that. So our Office of Emergency Management is reminding our residents to sign up for Alert Coral Springs to receive important notifications before, during, and after the storm. This Alert Coral Springs system is going to replace Code Red starting next year. It's much easier for you as a resident to manage. You're going to be able to go on there and input your information. It sends messages out by either text message, email, or actual phone calls that you'll be able to listen to with the information that they're sending out. So the Code Red system that they were using earlier, before that didn't have the luxury of sending out text messages and emails, so this system will be more robust in that way. You can go on the city's website and sign up for Alert Coral Springs, or you can Google that. It'll take you right to the page where you can sign up. We also want to talk about our training facility. We call it the Coral Springs Regional Institute of Public Safety. It's known throughout the South Florida region as a fire and public safety training facility, but really it's a lot more than that. This facility teaches a lot of classes for our residents and any visitors to Coral Springs. One of the 2 classes that we're doing now that we're very proud of, one is called Stop the Bleed program, and it allows you as the resident to go get training by our certified staff that are able to teach these trauma classes, and we're able to teach you, the public, to be able to help control bleeding in case of any emergency. It doesn't have to be a major disaster such as a shooting situation. It could be something as simple as a loved one of yours that falls and injures themselves and is bleeding, and you can help control that. So it's very important. We want our residents to learn as much of that stop the bleeding as they can. The second program that we've been doing for quite some time, but we're very proud of, we're putting a lot of students through every year, is our CPR classes. CPR is not just for trained professionals as well to use. Our police officers and firefighters obviously will learn that skill, but this is something that we want our residents to know, because the person that you could be helping could be somebody that you love, could be a family member of yours. So we want you to be able to have these skills, and we want you to be able to hopefully never have to use them, but have the ability to do so if needed. The last thing that I'd like to talk about, we're very proud at constantly trying to grow our fire department. Currently, there are 11 new firefighter paramedics in training that are going to be hitting the streets soon. Those particular positions were hired to cover a rescue truck in the city of Parkland. However, that truck also runs a lot in the north end of Coral Springs. Our commission also voted to give us 3 additional firefighter paramedic positions starting just after October 1st when the new budget starts. And those firefighter paramedics will be training very shortly, and we'll be getting those firefighters out on the street to help the residents in Coral Springs, so we're appreciative of that. So you will be seeing some new faces out here on the street, and we'll get them trained up real soon and out there to help our residents out. That's all I have. Jerry?
Good evening. On behalf of Chief Perry and the men and women of the Coral Springs Police Department, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. Schools have been back in session now for a little over a month. However, our department has been working with the school board and school administrators throughout the summer to ensure that all of our schools remain safe. The Coral Springs Police Department has signed a contract with Broward School Board, giving the department access to all of the public school security cameras in the event of an emergency. Also, officers have been provided the necessary tools and equipment to gain access to schools 24 hours a day, even when the schools are placed on lockdown. All of our schools, including public charter schools, have either an officer or a guardian assigned to the school. All of our public high schools have 2 school resource officers assigned to the school. The Coral Springs Police Department always has and always will make safety of our children a priority. In addition to the school safety, our traffic unit has analyzed school traffic patterns during drop-off and dismissal times. The traffic patterns at some of the schools have already been changed to make things safer for the students and less disruptive for the surrounding neighborhoods. We are continuing to work with the Florida Department of Transportation to improve traffic patterns at other schools. There are two new traffic laws that go into effect October 1st. The first law requires all cell phone use to be hands-free in school zones and construction zones. The second law prohibits texting while driving. Both of these laws are primary offenses. The purpose of these laws is to help prevent distracted driving, which is a cause for a majority of the traffic crashes in our city. Again, these laws go into effect October 1st, and the Coral Springs Police Department does plan on enforcing the violations. It is a goal of all police departments to reduce crimes. Two crimes I'd like to discuss are vehicle burglaries and auto theft. From January through August of this year, we had 267 auto burglaries, which is a 4% reduction from the previous year. However, 190 of the 267 auto burglaries, the victims' vehicles have been unlocked. That's 70% of the auto burglaries occur where the victims' vehicles are unlocked. We had 109 auto thefts. That's a 5% reduction from the previous year. 60 of the victims' vehicles were unlocked with the keys or key fob left in the vehicle. That's 55%. Over half of the vehicles that are stolen have the keys or key fob left in the vehicle with the vehicle unlocked. Although we have an overall reduction in both auto burglary and auto theft, we as a community can do better. The police department is asking you to help us reduce crime by making it harder and less desirable for criminals to burglarize and steal your vehicles. Please do not leave valuables in your vehicle. Lock your car doors and take your keys and key fobs out of the vehicle. Lastly, I'd like to make you aware of a couple of upcoming community events that we'll be hosting. On October 5th, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., we'll be hosting a shred-a-thon at the south end of Sportsplex Drive. And on October 26th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we'll be hosting a drug take-back where you can turn in any prescription pills that you're not being used, and that will be located at Broward Health Coral Springs by the Medical Office Complex. Thank you again for joining us this evening. I'll turn it over to Julie.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Again, I'm Julie Krolak. I'm Assistant Director of Development Services. First up this evening, I'd like to update you on the Power of Art events, which have been going on for the last year. We have 2 events remaining. I hope everyone will be able to participate in them. The first is called the Yellow Walk. It's by artist Katie Gilmore. And that event's going to run from November 8th to 11th at the Art Walk here on 31st. A yellow walkway will be laid out, and participants will walk along the walkway with performers, showing that no one in our community walks alone for this event. And then the final project for the Power of Art is called Peace and Love. It's going to be 130 foot by 30 foot super billboard. The letters themselves are going to each be 16 feet tall. Everyone's going to be welcome to come to various workshops to affix silk flowers to the letters, and it will then be on display. The dedication is scheduled for February 14th of next year. So if you'd like more information on these events, please go to poweroa.org. You can hear about that in the past events as well. We always like to provide you an update of some of the upcoming development at these meetings. Hopefully you've been by the Coral Square Mall lately and seen some of the improvements that are going on outside, whether it be the building's exteriors getting a little bit of a facelift. They've invested thousands of dollars in the site itself. They're improving in landscaping, irrigation, the parking lot, so it's looking great out there. We also have a mixed-use development proposed for the corporate park on Sample and 124th Avenue. In addition to the 7-Eleven that'll be included with the project, Flora Foods is actually constructing a new 75,000 square foot warehouse that's going to have a type of marketplace with it that people can go and get fresh food and sandwiches and things like that. So we're really happy to see Flora Foods stay within the corporate park and reinvest within the park, and the marketplace itself is going to be a great addition as well. If you'd like more information on these projects or other development projects that are going on around the city If you visit community development's portion of the city's website, we have a new interactive map. If you click on that label, interactive maps, you can see renderings, site plans, and status of various projects citywide. And finally, let's get excited. April 1st, 2020 is Census Day. It's our next nationwide census. Participation is critical for cities like ours. It really determines how billions of dollars are going to be spent, federal dollars especially, are going to be spent over the next 10 years. And for the first time, the census is going to be online this time. So instead of receiving the long or the short form that you're used to seeing in the mail, you're actually going to get a postcard that'll give you information on how to do that online, whether it be on your desktop or on your cell phone. So it's going to be different for everyone, and you'll hear a lot of promotions about it from us over the next year. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Horace.
Good afternoon. I'm Horace McHugh, the Deputy City Manager. And first, I wanted to take some time to give you an update on some of the projects that's occurring within the CRA. The first is Cornerstone. That's a private development, and the developer has been in touch with us. They plan to demolish the existing building there and to establish offices, maybe 160 square feet of office, some retail restaurant, entertainment, including a movie theater, a bar, and some activities on the rooftop, a hotel, a residential tower, and between the towers, using Main Street as a pedestrian corridor to promote walkability. They indicated that they plan to submit plans in October. We would be then starting the review process, and that will allow for the demolition in the early part of 2020, start construction, going vertical, and then taking probably 24 months for the construction. Talking about walkability, both the CRA and they have approved wayfinding signs and decorative poles as a way to promote walkability. And the intent there is, as people walk, these signs would provide some direction to help them find parking, entertainment, public facilities. We have the City Hall, we have the Post Office, the Art Walk, all those activities that someone walking would be able to determine where these features are and take advantage of that. Installation of that will also be in the next quarter. Our CRA and our City Commission saw it fit to honor former mayor and former state representative and community leader Skip Campbell, and as a result, they have agreed to rename 94th Ave between Sample and 31st Court in honor of him. That dedication ceremony is expected in the next quarter also, so those are a few things that's coming up in the next quarter. And within the CRA, some of the things that we continue to do is have commercial enhancement grants, and what that does is engage our business community, allows them to use those grants to improve aesthetics on commercial buildings within the CRA. So all those are activities within the CRA. On a citywide basis, from an economic development perspective, the city continues to have a commitment to a thriving business community. As a result of that, we have hired a consultant. The consultant has done and is still doing some outreach, interviews, community forums to engage the business community, to get some feedback and kind of get a sense for what some of their concerns are. They have taken those concerns as well as looking at an assessment of the community and looked at our strengths, our weaknesses, and definitely our opportunities, and talk about some areas of improvements. Based on that, they are in the process of identifying some targeted industries that and businesses that they would suggest that we try to appeal to recruit, given our unique location or unique dynamics of the city or workforce. So that analysis would be presented to the commission sometime in November, and then we'll coordinate the implementation through economic development, community development, and our building departments. Citywide, one of the things that our economic development staff is working on is the Restaurant Week, Savor the Springs Restaurant Week, and that's an opportunity to feature our local restaurants. We have reached out to our local restaurants. We've asked them to provide some packages for lunch and for dinner, where it's a reasonable amount in terms of the cost, and an incentive for you as residents to go ahead and take advantage of those reduced costs and experience the cuisine that these restaurants have to offer. We just completed our budget process, and our budget is our annual work plan, which identifies our priorities and the projects that we plan on addressing for the upcoming year. So we've just, the commission has just approved and adopted that. Just as a summary, some of the community priorities that's included are, funding of federal lobbyists, and the purpose of that is to help us reach out federally to get grants and get some resources from the federal government. Things like body cameras for our law enforcement to improve law enforcement features, median improvements in beautification, hardening of our IT infrastructure to protect our infrastructure from hacking, funding the census outreach, which is it's not a recurring event, turf fields that Parks had mentioned, and fire services that our Parks or fire staff had mentioned, and just other things in terms of improvement in quality of life, public safety, and innovation. In addition to that, the budget itself includes a separate assessment for stormwater, which would help us develop a comprehensive master plan to address our drainage. It includes an assessment for fire assessment, which that's a recurring feature, and it also addresses a separate assessment for our solid waste. These are just some of the features summarized in terms of the outreach that we're doing. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with the commission to identify the community needs and to work with staff to implement efficiencies and service improvements. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for your information. I do want to recognize a couple people who came in right when we were getting started. I want to make sure that we don't miss you. Commissioner Larry Vignola is here. Our Director of Budget and Strategy, Catherine Givens, is here. We have representatives from Broward County Traffic Engineering, from Waste Pro. Let me see, who am I forgetting? Susie, Director of Development Services, in the back. Our City Forester is here, Casey. And Paul Carpenter, our Transportation Planner. If I missed anybody, I'm sorry, we'll catch up with you. But we do have a lot of people here from different divisions within the city, so if you have a question that somebody up here on the dais can't answer, we'll make sure to get the right person here up here to the podium to answer some questions. Let's begin. We actually have a pretty good amount of online questions that we want to get to from some of the folks that are at home watching. And some of these questions as well we got earlier today from our Nextdoor platform, which we'll encourage you guys to sign up for as well. We got a question from Sue asking about, each year she says there's an increase in the Coral Springs Fire Service assessment. Last year it was $200 and now it's up to $227. Sue thinks that the assessment's rapidly growing, and she has two questions for that statement. What's the fire assessment for, and don't we already pay for fire services within our property tax rate? I think this has a little bit of a budget feel to it, so I'm actually going to pass that one to Horace, if you don't mind. She's asking what the service fee is for and why isn't it included in regular taxes?
Or in our regular taxes, we include services for emergency medical services. We have a separate assessment to deal with fire-related activities. And as you heard, Mike had mentioned, one of the areas that we decided to increase our service levels this year is with adding additional firefighters and people to support the fire services. We normally replace and improve our equipment. So as we do that, there's a cost, and some of this increase represents the increased cost. Even after this increase is added on, we compared ourselves to other municipalities in Broward County, and we're within the bottom third in terms of the fire assessment fees that the city of Coral Springs do assess to our residents. So we're very, very comfortable that we're providing a high service level, quality service at a reduced cost, and some of that is because of the steps that we have taken in terms of efficiencies.
Thanks, Horace. Before we get to some more online questions, just a reminder for our audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. We'll have somebody come give you a card and a pen, and we'll get those to Lynn, and Lynn's going to bring them up to us, to our staff here. Let's do a couple more online. Is that all right?
Sure.
All right. This question's from Christine. She wants to know about any future plans for Verizon internet or if AT&T will be offering fiber in our city. Actually, I think that might be you again, Horace.
So the city itself does not provide this service. We don't provide the wireless, the internet, and the cabling services. We have 3 service providers within the city, AT&T, Xfinity, and Bluestream. So what I would suggest is that you go ahead and contact them to find out if they service your areas, and then if they do service your area, if they do have plans for any of these services in the near future. But we, the city, do not provide that. That's one of those areas that we don't want to compete with the private sector because they can do a better job.
Thanks. And we also got a similar question online relating to Comcast, and that answers that one as well. Lynn, how about some audience questions?
Absolutely. We have 2 questions from the audience. The first is from Dermot, who lives in the Crossings. He is asking if the northwest corner of Sample Road and Rock Island Road can receive much-needed maintenance regarding the high grass and weeds in the swale area. And the surrounding sidewalks. And he mentioned it's the Wawa construction site.
I'll take that one, sorry. I actually just sent an email a couple hours ago to their attorney, and he emailed me back, I will be right on it. They're pretty good at doing that, and I will say, some of these construction sites, they just forget that they're supposed to mow outside of it because they're so concentrated inside, and it just takes a couple emails and stuff to remind them. So this group, I know, I've sent him an email before, and it usually gets done within a few days. This is a pedestrian zone over to that high school. So guessing it'll be done probably by Monday or Tuesday.
And then also Sandra, and I'm sorry if it's Sandra, from the Hills area, she's asking, has the city considered having a Hanukkah menorah and lighting side by side with the Christmas tree? But hold on, she has a PS. P.S. Thank you for all the work done to prevent trucks from going through the covered bridge. But let's start with the first question.
We definitely appreciate not driving through the covered bridge again. I'm glad that took. I don't even know who wants to take that one.
So I'll take that. As part of our inclusiveness, we constantly look at programs and activities and events that celebrate our cultural diversity. So one of the things we normally do is look for ways to celebrate that diversity, and I don't know specifically what steps and we'll be taking, but certainly as the December holidays roll around, we'll be doing something and continue to do something that reflects our diversity in our community.
Thanks. I got one online here. I think I'm going to take this one. How long can a homeowner leave plywood hurricane shutters up after the threat of a hurricane warning has passed? So the city has an ordinance that only allows you to leave up your shutters 14 days after the storm has passed. And I know there's a little bit of a code side to this as well, so Jack, if you want to jump in here too, but I think it's most important to understand that this is really a safety hazard for the first responders, the police officers and firefighters. If we had to go into a house that has shutters still up, we heavily rely on secondary means of exits to get out in case there's a fire in the home, and there have been many cases over the years, fortunately not in South Florida, but unfortunately where firefighters have been killed because they've been trapped inside of houses and were unable to get out. So from a public safety perspective, it's really a safety issue, and so code enforcement does enforce removing those shutters within the 14 days.
So I know our officers have been out. A few folks may have gotten a courtesy warning with a letter from the fire marshal taped to your front door asking you to remove those. There's 2 things our ordinance has. One is aesthetically, but as you said, the safety issue is the one way in and one way out. And the fire department will not go in to a home with the shutters up. And so that's where that safety concern is. That goes for businesses also, that needs to come down. And I know folks are a little weary about stuff being out, and we try to be compassionate with that, but again, it is a safety issue. There is also another good thing program that we'd like to point out. If it's a storm season and you're going out of town and you want to put your shutters up, let's say you're going on an extended vacation, maybe a cruise or up north, the fire department online, we have a form that you can fill out saying, my shutters are going to be up, but my house is not going to be occupied. That way the fire department knows that no one's in there and your shutters are up. And that is you are allowed to have those up during storm season if you've completed that form stating that it's not occupied.
You want to do any audience questions?
Sure,
I have
I'll
a-
go ahead and take another audience question. This one's from Melvin in the audience. He's concerned with the invasion of iguanas and is wondering if the city can help get rid of them because the individual cost is very high. And he's wondering if, you know, we can get as many residents to pay part of the bill to assist with this. But what can he do to address that problem?
Think that would be humane, Jerry, with any of those animals?
Yeah, imagine, I know the state just recently passed a law, which doesn't sound too humane, is where you are allowed to kill the iguanas because they are an invasive species. They're not native to our area. Our humane unit does not pick up iguanas. They're kind of limited as to what they do and what they can and can't do. As for costs or any city program, that's kind of outside the realm of the police department or anything, but I know there are private companies and trappers that they use for other types of animals, and that is your best bet right now. I don't know if anyone else can speak on any.
Maybe a cold spell.
A cold spell would certainly work, but the way things have been going, I wouldn't count
Yeah,
on it.
okay.
While we're answering some of these questions from the audience and from online, we do want to remind you guys about some things that are going on throughout the city. We want to invite our residents, make sure you guys are involved as much as possible. We always love to see all of our residents out at city events. Want to remind you that October 5th is our popular Oktoberfest. This event has extended hours from 2 to 10 p.m. right here on the Great Lawn at City Hall. There is two very large lawn properties out in front of the City Hall here, and any of these events that the city has, they're always very well decorated and always a good time for all of these events that we have. I have a couple questions here that are coming in online. Why do we allow the Sun Sentinel to throw the newspaper, specifically the Forum, on people's driveway? They reference that it looks like it's litter there. Jackie, I'm
So,
going to
yeah, I know. So this has come up in the past, many of our SLICE meetings years back. And what we've always told people is to reach out to the Sun Sentinel, tell them you really don't want to get this. But we were talking about it because it did come in earlier, and one of our staff members who's here tonight actually said, I get it also, and it comes on a Thursday, but it's in Spanish, so I can't read it. I happen to have known one of the reporters for a long time, so I emailed her this question and asked her the same thing. And they're going to be getting me the name of the person who can help. So I'll be directing this back to our marketing department, who will be able to push this out and back to whoever had written that online and to anybody else who has this question. Because we do see those newspapers that are left in the driveway that are wet and soggy, and people just walk by them. I still get the print paper. I know, don't laugh. So my son, okay, good. So our form comes in the Sun Sentinel. Yes.
We have another question online that just came in, and surprised it took this long to come in. Lee is asking, what's the latest on the charter school moving? I'm going to give this one to Horace.
So that project, Bob in the city manager's office did work on that. And part of working on it is doing an assessment in terms of what the sale would be, what the value of that property would be, and then working to figure out if we were to relocate it, where it would go and what the cost of that property would be. And after that assessment was done, it was determined that financially it was not a feasible project. I think he reported that back to the commission maybe 2, 3, 4 months ago. And I don't have the specifics on it, but that analysis was completed and determined that, while it's a nice idea to provide this location here for the downtown, it's something that was not financially feasible.
We have another question also from Lee. Hey, Lee, thanks for all your questions. What can we do about the traffic backed up around the school zones? I think, Jerry, this one's for you.
Sure. It's, Lee, if you can write back and tell us which specific school, if there is a specific school. But like I said in my opening, We do handle all school complaints. Let me go over our three schools we received the most complaints on and let you know what we have done thus far. And if it's a different school, we'll certainly look at it. Forest Hills Elementary School, we've had numerous complaints all throughout last year. Vehicles were backing up on Northwest 85th Avenue, which is one lane each way, and when they're backing up, people would be forced to drive the wrong way down the road, and cars were backing up northbound almost onto Sample Road, which was kind of creating somewhat of a hazard as well when people aren't paying attention. We did change the pattern for parents, and this was mostly happening at dismissal time, because the schools cannot open like they used to. They used to open, parents would line up an hour before dismissal, and they would be in or on school property. With the whole MSD Protection Act law, schools cannot do that anymore. So now we have more parents that are picking up their kids and line up early are displaced onto the roadway. We altered the traffic pattern. Now they line up on Forest Hills Boulevard and not so much on 85th Avenue. What that does is they're lined up on a roadway where there's two lanes. So if they're blocking one lane, at least traffic can get through on another lane to be safe. And that's at Forest Hills Elementary School. Another school we've had problems with was Westchester Elementary School. Parents were lining up on Northwest 123rd Avenue, very similar to Northwest 85th Avenue, one lane each way. And when they line up on that, which connects to Royal Palm Boulevard, it created a traffic hazard. We altered the route for dismissal. Parents are no longer permitted to line up on Northwest 123rd Avenue. They line up on Royal Palm Boulevard. And again, it's a two-lane road, so the traffic has been, that problem has been solved. Coral Springs Charter School. There's always a problem with cars going through the intersection when the light's turning yellow or on a green light, but there's not enough room and they get stuck on a red light in the middle of the intersection at Sample and University Drive. We have done quite a bit of traffic enforcement on that. By law, you're not permitted to go through an intersection till you know you can clear the intersection on a green light. When cars get stuck in there, it creates a traffic jam. We have worked with the Florida Department of Transportation. One of the issues were cars that were traveling on Sample Road westbound, making the U-turn to pull into the middle school side of the drop-off in the morning. We went to them with the possibility of getting a no U-turn during school hours, school zone hours. That was denied. They had reasons, and the reasons aren't necessarily that wrong, but we're continuing to work with them to find solutions for that school. Basically, it's almost a common courtesy. If you're not going to make it through the intersection because you know the cars are backed up, wait one more light cycle. It's going to save a lot of people a lot of problems. I don't know. Those are the three schools we've had the most complaints on. I don't know if that addresses one of Lee's schools that he has an issue with, but if there's another one, please write us. If I don't get back to you tonight, I will email him and address his concern.
And if you don't get the resolution to a question that you posted online, just our staff will be going through the comments later on today and tomorrow, and we'll be responding to those questions. We did have some other traffic questions that were asked, and I think you covered them since they were asked. On your website, there's actually a page where people can report traffic issues. We're right on the police department's website, and I know they're very good about getting back with the people that reported them.
That's correct. If they have an inquiry or make a complaint, somebody will contact them back, and it will be assigned to an officer to investigate.
Julie, I got one for you. Are you guys giving any help for new home buyers in Coral Springs?
Well, we have had this program in the past. We don't have it currently. We are looking at options and seeing what's out there as far as whether we want to offer it again. What we do have right now, though, is a home repair grant for up to $40,000 for homeowners within the city to do things like impact windows, replacing roofs, to really help harden the home and make it safer to live in. So we even have an application online now, or you can call our office at 954-344-1160, and someone will direct you to Carla. She's our home repair specialist, and we can get you on the waiting list. So.
Thanks. Lynn, I think you got several questions over there. Let's take a break from online and get some from you.
Absolutely. We have a lot a lot of people in our audience tonight, which is great. The next question's from Dick from Maplewood. What exactly will the new stormwater assessment be used for? He had reached out to personnel, and he said he did not get an answer to this question when he had called. So,
Juan, do you want to take that from a stormwater perspective?
I'll take that.
Okay.
One of the things that occurred is that as we developed as a community 50 years ago, we did not necessarily have a planned drainage system with our stormwater. We developed and we expanded. So as a result of that, there's not a systematic system, and from time to time when rain falls, then we have excessive flooding. So what this allows us to do is to develop a comprehensive system that addresses our entire city, and then based on that, look at the slope of pipes, the size of pipes, where the pipes are draining, where the water is draining to, capacity issues, and look at it comprehensively so that water is conveyed from one area to another without backing up in another area. Some of this also interchanges with other districts, water management districts. So it's a real comprehensive thing. A number of municipalities in South Florida have this same issue and have imposed a stormwater assessment and do a similar type of plan, a study, and then implement the infrastructure to avoid this. This is something that we here in Coral Springs have not done, and this allows us the opportunity of moving forward with this now and then doing this on a comprehensive basis that in a couple of years the community would see the benefit, and ultimately it has ripple effects in terms of reduction in flooding, which then impacts your insurance and other effects like that. As a result of doing this or committing to this, one of the things we were able to do was apply to the Office of Economic Development, and we were successful in getting grants to the tune of $2.8 million to assist in the process. So I think while we're doing this, our bond agencies are acknowledging that this is a responsible act to do, as well as funding agencies in terms of grantors are also acknowledging this. So the combination, I think we're comfortable with the progress that with the fact that we have implemented this.
Thank you. I'm going to do a couple online questions because we're getting a lot online. I want to catch up a couple of these. One of them is from Lisa, who's asking, who takes aerosol spray paint cans? Juan, you want to take that one?
Well, I think that falls into this event that is coming up next weekend, October 5th, at the Waste Transfer Station. The first weekend of every month, we are taking, paints and those hazardous materials. And the special event on October 5th, we are taking oil. I had the list here. All the hazardous materials that mentioned. Every first weekend of every month, we are taking that.
Pretty much anything you shouldn't put in the garbage. And while you still get your microphone, I got one more here that's been waiting for a while. The gutter and water drain concrete in front of their house is not level, and they're wanting to know who's in charge of those repairs. They said they have to use a broom to get the...
Yeah, that's something that the street division could assist us with. So if we get the address, I can send the street supervisors to make an assessment and assist with that.
They did put their address down. I'll get it to you afterwards.
Okay.
So we get somebody out there. Lynn?
yep, we got a lot of questions here in the audience. They want to know, someone wants to know the reason behind not being allowed to park a boat behind a covered fence with only the T-top showing. How can this rule be changed?
I'll take this one, Jack, unless you want to,
Either way.
we can both take it.
I will
we can
say,
tag team,
the
but,
boats, the recreational vehicles, for those people who have been here a long time, and this is, I don't even know how many, 25 slices I've done, you get those long-term residents that really want to stick to the rules of why they moved here. You know, not having commercial vehicles, not having the recreational vehicles, not allowing certain things. And then you have some newer people who say, why can't I park that boat? So our code is very strict about recreational vehicles not being, or any type of vehicles parked in the backyard and how that is. And again, I monitor our public stuff, the complaints that come in, and I would bet, and I'm being very conservative, 75% of the community does not want boats or recreational vehicles. But I'm gonna let Julie cover on how that, a code section could be changed. It's quite extensive.
Sure, yeah. Whenever we look at the code to see if we want to make changes, we look not only at requests such as Jackie was talking about, but we also look at other cities to see what they're allowing, especially cities that are comparable to us, whether it be aesthetics or the type of development that's around or whatnot. And from there, we would initiate a code amendment, which would be presented to the Planning and Zoning Board, and ultimately, the City Commission makes the decision on whether or not to change the regulations that are in the code.
We also want to, again, we talked about earlier, want to remind our residents of some events that are coming up. The Farmers Market returns to Coral Springs at a new location on the corner of Sample Road and Coral Hills Drive on October 13th. The Farmers Market has always been a very popular thing for our residents to go to, so hopefully you'll be able to join us on October 13th. I have a question from Lisa, who's asking, will the trees be removed from Lucky's parking lot, or will they be replaced?
That one's me.
Very popular today.
If you've driven by that plaza recently, I'm sure it's a shock to see the trees gone. And Casey Lee, our city forester, has been working with the property owner right along with that project. Honestly, the trees were in the wrong place. They were too big for the islands that they were originally planted in. And unfortunately, they also were not maintained over several years, since they've been planted, honestly. So we've worked with the property owner to take those trees out. Yes, the stumps will be removed. They'll be reformatting the islands that are throughout that plaza as part of the overall project that they're doing. They'll also be revamping the entryways to add additional trees within those areas as well. So it's coming. They just want to finish the construction on the building first before they start putting the more trees in on the site, so.
I know Lynn has a lot of audience questions. Let's get to those so we make sure we get everybody. And by the way, too, folks, we do encourage you to ask questions, but if we do run out of time, the representatives here and also other representatives from different divisions in the city will be out in the lobby and we'll be able to answer any questions. So Lynn, you want to take some more?
Sure. The next one I have is from Frank, who lives in Oak Brook. Oak Brook wishes to replace their neighborhood sign that was removed for the expansion of Wiles Road. The city has not permitted replacement. Why? And what is the solution?
I'll take that one. So I'm not sure specifically where Oak Brook is looking to put their sign. There could be something with the way the road was widened, but I'll certainly, it was Frank, I believe? Frank? I'll certainly be happy to meet with you afterwards and talk to you about how we can get that going for you. Okay, great.
And they have an association, so that's good.
Okay, and we may have a grant that could help you out with that, too.
Thanks.
Okay. Next up, will there be any housing for seniors here in Coral Springs? And that question came in from Alberta.
Well, we do have some existing senior housing. We've been speaking to actually a few different developers that have asked us about it recently. Whether or not those projects go forward, we'll wait and see. We don't have any specifically that have submitted at this time for site plan review or anything like that.
I want to do a couple more events real quick, Lynn, if you don't mind, so we can make sure to cover all them. The city's annual not-so-haunted house at the Coral Springs Gym is October 25th and 26th. You can see the information up there on the screen. For some more details about this event, visit coralsprings.org/events, where you'll be able to see all of the events that are going on in the city. Another event that we're very proud of, the Coral Springs Parkland Fire Department Pasta Dinner, is Saturday, October 26th from 4 to 8 p.m. at Fire Station 80. And for just $5, you can get salad, bread, pasta, and a drink, cooked by our firefighters and with homemade stuff by our fire chief. It's a very good event, and we raise money for cancer charities here locally. So we hope you'll join us there. And again, all of these events are located at coralsprings.org/events, where you can see all of the events going throughout the city. Lynn, you have any more questions?
Yes, we have quite a few. Can anything be done to improve the grounds of the post office?
So we get several complaints about that, and we have been working with the post office for at least a year. They have certain standards that they use to do their maintenance, and we have a higher level of maintenance requirement. We have actually met with their supervisor on site. the manager on site, the regional officer, representative. We have spoken to somebody in DC, and we have offered to do screening, to do some maintenance, to do some additional thing, and their response was, no, thank you. Their rules and policies prohibit them from allowing us to do it. We have no jurisdiction in terms of code of citing them, so we have reached out to them. We have gone all the way to DC. We have spoken to a federal representative to ask if they could intervene, but I think we've exhausted the efforts that we can take to have that property beautified.
Yes, from Norm, he's been trying to get fallen palm fronds cleaned up from around Cypress Glen to no avail. So he was wondering if he can get some help with that. I don't think we need to actually answer that. I think that's something that we can take care of.
Actually, are they areca palms? Who wrote that in? The areca palms. We actually had people at the hearing today. We had a special magistrate hearing, and we are actively working on that. And I point to Rick Engel, the Parks Director. His guys pick up the linear parks, and as you know, those areca palms are always been a problem. So we are always on folks, bring them to a hearing, expressing how they need to clean those out, and they're really not too happy with me when we tell them that, as you can imagine. So there's a lot of cases going on down there in Cypress Glen, Maplewood, a couple neighbors. Those areca palms are tough and they're high maintenance. If anybody has those, you understand what I'm talking about.
Okay, I do want to just point out too, again, we're going to remain for our audience after our live feed. We'll be out in the lobby. Claudia from Oak Brook had asked specifically about coyotes in her neighborhood. What I'd like her to do is speak to Captain Irwin after the event, because that is really a humane unit and police department question. So we'll move on from that. This one's a comment. They just want to see if we can get any help to speed up the approval to re-erect our entrance sign at Northwest 66th Terrace, Wiles Road, after the construction, and that would be very much appreciated.
They'd like to join Frank and I outside afterwards. We can chat with you as well.
Excellent. And from Natalie, we've made many requests about the bridle path. It's zoned as private property, yet it's clearly made to be public. Can we look at it? This would enhance a pedestrian-friendly city. Please help. Path is from 39th to University in the Hills, and I'm going to ask Natalie to go ahead and stay after, and which one of you would be able to assist her with that?
I can try. I'll be happy to try.
So Natalie in the audience, you're going to go see Julie. Okay, and Mercy from the Isles is interested in disposing of unframed mirrors. And again, we had talked about the household hazardous waste on October 5th. So we have information actually outside about that. So that would be the right place to bring those mirrors. And lastly, is there any income limit to apply for a grant for shutters? And that's again from Alberta. And I think, Julie, you have information on that, so I'm going to ask Alberta from the audience to come see you and your team afterwards. Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So if you don't mind, let's do one more online question since it's been sitting here for a little bit, and then we're going to stop with the online questions. That doesn't mean we're not going to answer them. It just means we're not going to do it here live. Any questions that you guys post online, our staff will be going through those and they will be answering you. This one is, when will the building on Sample and University be coming down?
So I think they're referencing Cornerstone, which, in my summary, I'd provided a brief comment. I provided some brief comments on our interaction with the developer. That is actually private property, and the developer is responsible for that. In dialogue with them and their team, they have indicated that they plan to submit plans for that sometime in October, to have those permitted and to start the demolition probably around March in the early part of next year, and then the construction is estimated about 2 years. And the plans include, residential, retail, restaurants, offices, a hotel, a combination of features and activities that would be appealing to the downtown.
So we are going to finish up. I do want to remind Just one last thing. We talked about the Alert Coral Springs. That's a program that we really want to push for all of our residents, for those folks that are here and that are watching online. We have the information on the screen. Very simply, text the word Coral Springs to the number 888-777. So in the to field on your text messaging on your phone, the recipient would be 888-777, and then go down to where you would type the message of the text, and you just simply put in Coral Springs, all together, one word. That will sign you up for Alert Coral Springs to get text messages to your phone. It is a very good program, and it's a way that we can keep in touch with everybody when we have any significant incidents or emergencies in the city. We want to thank you all that joined us here in the chamber today. We want to thank you all that joined us online at your house or your business. We appreciate you joining us. It's important that we communicate with you in the most effective ways possible, and we think that this process is working very well. If you are here in the audience, we want to remind you that our city staff is going to stay after, and we will be in the lobby of City Hall. We will be able to answer any questions that you have, and we're going to direct you to the person in the specific division that can answer those questions for you. Any questions that are unanswered here, we promise to get the answer to you, and any questions that are unanswered online, our staff will also get those answers to you as quickly as we can. So thank you for joining us, and have a good night, Coral Springs.
Thank you. If you'd please fill out.
They muted you.
Don't just everybody get a prize.